welcome to vlog episode 15. In this episode we end up doing a low 2-5 session. This was a couple weeks ago on a Friday night. The action was good, a lot of tables running, and let's not waste any time. Let's get right into the episode. So although there's a lot of action in the casino on the poker room, my table's been a little bit slow for the first hour. So haven't really got any big cards, any good hands, any spots really to, attack some of the players at the table. But the good thing is, when you don't play a hand for about an hour, you get to get some information on people, so that's key. So there's a hand where I wake up with a pair of sixes and I'm in middle position. In this particular hand, there's a $10 button straddle. It's 2 callers and it's on me, and I bump it up to 30 in middle position. Have a pair, definitely, I don't like just calling in this instance. I like either coming in for a raise, and folding seems too nitty. It folds around back to the button, who has been a pretty aggressive player. They've been in a lot of pots, and they make it 110 to go. The other 2 players who had called the $10 straddle fold, and it's back on me. And I'm put in a very weird spot to begin the night, because the button person who bet 110 only has around 225, 230 left in their stack at this point. So folding to this type of aggressive player is an option, but their range is so wide. Going for a 4-bet seems a little bit too risky, I guess, because it's kind of like, with their stack they're going to call anything, and do I really want to go, for $300 something pot just with a pair of sixes? And calling is awkward as well because I'm out of position, so really no option is an option that I like here. But I decide to take the middle option, which is calling, to see a flop and see what develops. The flop comes and it's 9-8-6. Bingo. So maybe I did make the best decision pre-flop, playing the result of course. And it's on us first act, and we decide to check it over. They showed some pre-flop aggression, and we're going to let them hang themselves. So just as I suspected, the button player decides to shove the remaining stack all in. We don't think about it very long. We look at the board. It's 9-8-6. We have bottom set. Although they're aggressive and can have any type of hand here, we're never folding. So we decide to make the call. They could have hands like 9-7. They could have possible overpairs to the board. But either way, we're ahead of 95% of the range. Unless they flopped a set of 9s or set of 8s or some random straight, we should be good. The turn comes and it's not the best of cards. It's a 10. Now any 7 type hand has a straight. The river comes and bingo, we hit the 8 and we got a full house. We turn over a hand and we're good. Opponent turns over pocket 7s for a straight. So we outflop them. They caught up on the turn to hit a straight. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. But on the river, we smashed it with to pair the board with a pair of 8s and our set of 6s, and we scooped the pot with a full house, and we're off to a good start. Before I get into this next hand, I just want to let you guys know, like, sometimes you're playing and you don't really have your A game for whatever reason. Maybe your reads are off, or you're just not playing right, the decisions you're making aren't optimal, and that's okay. Now, a question to ask myself is, if you don't have your A game, should you get up from the table? And I think as long as you're not making horrendous decisions, and your opponents are weaker, or your B game is better than most opponents, and I don't think there's a need to get up. I think, you know, it all varies, and you have to be the judge of how you feel things are going. But always take that into account. If a lot of factors aren't going your way and the opponents are tough, it's okay to get up and walk away and go to a different table, or just, you know, call it a night or take a minute to regroup. Just some tips. Alright, in this next hand, we pick up Ace-King, under the gun, offsuit, and we decide to limp. We decide to switch it up. Normally I would come in for a bet here, but I just limp with the Ace-King. So after I limp, middle position player also calls the 5, the small blind calls the 5, and the big blind decides to put in a bet of $30. Yeah, so I call the 30, the middle position player calls the 30, and the small blind also calls the 30, and we're going 4 ways to a flop. The flop is Jack 8 5, Jack of hearts, 8 of hearts. So there's 2 hearts on the flop. I have Ace-King, I have the King of hearts, I have 2 overs, and I have a pretty high heart for a runner flush. Nevertheless, first to act, I'm gonna take the conservative line and check here. And it checks around, and that's good because with my type of hand, I may be even good at this point with Ace-King high, and I have 2 overs to the board, so even if somebody has a jack, you know, the turn card could be very beneficial. The turn brings an interesting card. It's the 9 of hearts. So now there is straight draws on the board. If somebody had a flush draw, they hit their flush. There's all sorts of goodness on this board. I don't know how much goodness for me, but I'm definitely getting closer to having a made hand. Still 2 overs, and now 1 more heart on the river. Runner will definitely hit our hand strong. And the small blind puts out a bet of $40. The big blind folds, and it's on us. I think the play here is just to go with the call, as if I decide to come in for a raise, I still have the middle position player from behind. And this pot was raised pre-flop, so there's a lot of hands that these players could have. Really, I don't have anything that strong at this point. I have possibilities, but I think calling is the best play here, and definitely folding isn't an option. So I make the call of 40, and the middle position player does something that I'm happy about. He doesn't raise, and he also calls. So 3 of us going to the river, and the river hits us. It's a 7 of hearts. So now there's 4 hearts on the board, and we got the King of hearts. So we're in an interesting spot here. The small blind decides to check. Now I have a decision. What amount do I want to bet? There still could be the Ace of hearts out there, which would put us in a tough spot because we're not folding to pretty much any re-raise. So we want to kind of size this as an amount where maybe some straight type hands can call and some weaker flushes. We don't want to size too big, as if nobody has anything, we'll lose them. And like I said, we don't want to get involved with somebody who may have not only the Ace of hearts, the 10 of hearts for the straight flush. Although not likely, you don't want to go broke on your entire stack when you definitely still don't have the nuts. The third nuts is not that strong. So I decided to size it at $75, which is a bet where you can get called by straights or somebody with like a Queen of hearts or something like that. The middle position player decides to make the call, and the small blind folds. We turn it over, and they muck, and we're good. So we hit that runner for that flush, and we win a nice pot there.
player.
As I go over these hands, I realize it really was off my game. The first hand with the pair of sixes, there was a 3-bet, and I called a pretty large 3-bet out of position with the pair of sixes. Not a good play. In this past hand with ace king, I limped. Somebody actually bets 30. Eventually gets back to me, and I don't, put in a 3-bet. So that was actually another bad play. And let's see how we can mess up this next hand. Or do we actually play decently? You guys let me know what you think about this next hand in the comments down below. Thanks for watching as always, by the way. So in this next hand, under the gun player limps. I'm under the gun +1, and I look down at king jack offsuit. It's a decent hand, and I decide just to limp and see what develops. It folds around to the button, who makes it 20. This is the same player from the 6-6 hand I had earlier. The small blind calls a 20, the big blind calls a 20, the under the gun player calls a 20, and it's on me. This player on the button is a player, like I said, that was very aggressive earlier, has been in a lot of pots, and I think they're just raising on the button just to build a pot, or possibly to kind of steal all those $5. The players that just called don't seem very strong, as they're just calling. So this is a thing that players, I think, should pay attention to. Usually, some people get sneaky, and I've seen people just call a bet with aces or kings or queens. It's not optimal. But most of the time, when somebody puts in a bet and the remaining players just call, their hands are speculative hands, and they're really not that strong. So I decide to take advantage of this money out there, and I put in a raise to $105, as I just feel the button is just kind of using the power of the button and trying to take down this money. The button quickly folds, and the remaining players also follow suit, and I take down a pot where I limped under the gun +1 and just took advantage of the situation, and it's an extra $80, and spots like this will make you have winning sessions, I believe. If you can find a couple of spots like this throughout the night, you can have an extra $200 or $300 that could be profit, or if you were kind of having a bad session and were down, will kind of make you have a break-even session. So always take advantage of scenarios like this when you have good reads on players, and just take advantage whenever you can. Any slide edge is important in poker. This is a hand that I just, very frustrating hand. I'll let you guys know why right now. So I'm up about $800 in the session. Everything's going good, and I decide to play a hand in middle position with ace jack that you will see why I regret shortly. So I have ace jack, and I make a 20 from middle position, which is a normal play. It's a hand that you want to come in for a bet for. Limping seems too boring, and you're folding a decently strong hand. So I put in a bet of 20, and the player next to act puts in a 3-bet to $70. This has been a player where I honestly can't get a read. The one time I did see a hand, he was bluffing, but in general he's been in a decent amount of pots, and he's looking to splash around. He looks like he's a tourist, really. He doesn't seem like he's from around here. I've never seen him, and I decided to play a little bit, I guess, crazy with my hand, and decide to make the call out of position for 70. My hand's not that strong. I could have easily let it go, but we'll see if I can flop good with this hand. So we make the call of 70. 4-betting, I guess I could have, I don't know. This is one of those hands. You'll see what develops. So the flop comes, and it's jack 8-5, 2 hearts. We flop top pair, and we're gonna just check here and see what ends up developing, as we think that he's definitely going to fire a c-bet if he misses, and we'll basically try to conceal the strength of our hand if he does, and probably just call, depending what the bet is. So he ends up putting a bet of $100, and I think about it for a bit, try to look a little bit weak, and I make the call. The turn comes and it's a offsuit 3, no hearts, so there's still 2 hearts on the board. And I decide to check again, as that card shouldn't have changed much. He thinks about it for a bit and he bets $170. Now I start to think, could this guy really have a hand? He could be doing this with an ace-king, definitely. You know, he missed the flop, and now a brick comes, and he's trying to show strength. He could have an overpair to the board as well. That's definitely a possibility. I think folding here is too nitty when you flop top pair and top kicker. So I decide to call and see what the river brings, as he could be double barreling. I don't know. Let's see what happens. The river is a 6 of hearts, and here's where the hand gets interesting. It's on me, and I feel that if I check, he's gonna put in a 3-barrel, which could be a 3-barrel bluff, but it could be betting 3 times for value. So what hands could he have here? Pocket jacks are very unlikely. Like we mentioned earlier, he could have an overpair. He could have a hand like ace-king, ace-queen of hearts and hit the river. But I decide that I'm going to put the pressure on. He has about 500 left in his stack. And for whatever reason, instead of checking and seeing what he did for a third time, I just shove all in and I put the pressure on. And no time passes and he snap calls, and I already know that there's no way that I'm winning. I turn over my hands and he turns over pocket aces. So yeah, he was not 3-barrel bluffing. If I would have checked, he would have bet. Maybe I could have saved some money, definitely. Maybe he would have bet 200 or 300, but I think my river bet just doesn't make sense. I guess I was trying to rep a flush. Just the whole night has been kind of a whirlwind of bad plays by me, but I'm not going to shy away from letting you guys know that I don't always, make the right play. And yeah, we end up losing basically all our profit for the night in this hand, and we're back to square one, but we're going to keep fighting, and we're going to try not to play dumb. In this next hand, we're in middle position, and we have 5-3 of clubs. This is one of those fun hands that I like to see flops with. The player in middle position, who is directly to my right, ends up putting out a bet of $25. He has not played a hand in a very long time, so he's a tight player. I know he has good cards, and with hands like 5-3, these are the type of players I want to go in against, not against some wild aggressive player, which I may not be know what he's really holding. So I can put this player on a specific range, so I'm definitely not 3-betting, as odds are 99% of the time I'm going to get 4-bet. But I decide to make the call as I want to see a flop with my hand. A player in late position calls, and the big blind calls, and we're going 4 ways to the flop. The flop is tremendous. I flopped the world. 10-4-2, 2 clubs. So we got a flush draw, an open-ended straight draw. We flopped the goods. It's on the big blind first. He checks. The pre-flop better, who is a type player who to my right, puts out a bet of 30. Now, I flopped such a good drawing hand that I don't want to lose the player who just bet 30. So I'm going to come in for a small raise, and I make it $80, as it'll keep him in with any decent holding. Something to my surprise happens after, though. The late position player makes it $225, so he comes in for a big bet here. So we've had a bet, I raised, and this guy raised me. So this is very, very interesting. The player in the big blind folds. The tight kid who bet pre-flop, who just bet 30, he also folds. So he probably bricked or is scared of all this betting. And it's on me. Now I have a decision to make, as that player has a lot of chips in front of him, and I'm still a little bit down in the dumps, I'd say, about that other hand where I just spewed off the 800 with the ace-jack top pair. So although I flopped the world, I guess I'm being kind of gun shy, you want to say, and I don't want to just go all in this hand, although there is nothing wrong with doing it, as in my eyes, when you have a flush draw and an open-ended straight draw, you have so many outs most of the time, so it wouldn't be a bad bet, and I could maybe take down the 225, but I decided just to make the call. The turn comes, and it's not the greatest of cards, as now it's another 10. The fact that he bets 225 on the flop leads me to believe he just doesn't have a 10. I think he was trying to steal the money that was out there, but it's a possibility, and we definitely need to slow down now, as there's only one more card to come, and we have basically the pair of 10s on the board and are 5 high. So I check, and the aggressive player in late position checks as well. The river comes, and now there's a 2. So now there's 10s and 2s on the board, but the good news is about the 2 on the river is that it is a club, and we hit our flush, which may mean nothing if he has a boat. I honestly don't think he has any type of hand here. His checking of the turn looks really weak, and just in case, since there is a double paired board here of 10s and 2s, he may have an ace in his hand, so I think I'm going to check to see if I can induce him to throw out a bet, and then I may raise depending on the bet. So I check, and he checks back, and I turn over my flush, and he seems really mad, and he folds his hand, but what can he be mad about? He didn't have a 10 or a 2, so what? Did he have a pair in his hand, and he's mad I got lucky on the river? I flopped the world, dude. Relax. So I win that hand, and we wrap up the session a little bit after. I end up with a profit of $314. With this profit of $314 after 6 sessions in the Bankroll challenge, we're getting close. $97,861 away from reaching our goal. But we're making progress, and we've only had 1 losing session during this time, so no complaints. We're going to keep grinding. At the end of this, you'll see a little, I guess, screenshot or breakdown of the Bankroll challenge. And again, as always, thank you for watching, and until next time, to a YouTube near you when my next video comes out, peace out.